But the biggest differentiator that I can see that a media owner can make is the level of service that they give to the agency. And that's not bring us cookies and Christmas cake and Easter bunnies. And that's not service. It's about getting the information to us as quick as possible. So when the deadline is Friday and you wait until Friday, generally by the time Friday comes, the person has already done all the selections because they can't wait until Friday because that means they have to work over the weekend because they've got to agree with the client on Monday.
Welcome to the Beyond the Billboard podcast. Recently, we launched our website, so please go check it out at beyondthebillboard.co.za. And if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please do subscribe and support us. So we have some exciting news. If you didn't know, Livia Brown and I are co-owners and co-managers of a dedicated out-of-home news platform called do.co.za. And recently, it's undergone a rebrand and is now Out of Home Central. Please go check it out at outofhomecentral.com. It is a central hub of resources from articles, news, inspiration through case studies, and an added job board and an added media owner directory and more. So if you have got any vacancies, out-of-home related vacancies or roles and want to have that role posted on the job board, please visit the website and complete the form. And if you are a media owner and would like to have your business listed on the website, please visit outofhomecentral.com and complete the form. There is a paid for premium listing as well as a free option to list your business. The launch of Out of Home Central showcases our commitment to the continued growth, professionalism, and advancement of the out-of-home industry. Okay, back to regular programming. Today, we are joined by a senior out-of-home experienced guest with over 30 years experience in the out-of-home industry spanning across media owner and agency side, and who is currently the trading and out-of-home manager at Park Advertising. We are exceptionally excited to invite Peter Lindstrom onto our podcast with us today to discuss the dynamics shaping out-of-home today. Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm quite excited to share some thoughts with you and the audience.
Thank you, Peter. I'm sure our audience is really, really excited to get into a meeting room with you today. So, Peter, you recently attended the World Out of Home Global Conference in London, and we would love for you to share what was your biggest takeout or key highlight from that experience and from that conference. We know that there was a lot more representation from South Africa attending this conference this year, given it was in London, so it's not as far for us to travel. But it would be so interesting to hear your key takeout and highlight from attending that conference that you can share with ourselves and our audience.
Christy, I mean, the WU conference is used to be called FEPI. I've been privileged to have attended quite a few of these, and it is without a doubt the seminal place to go and find information and to learn about what the industry is doing at a worldwide basis. There's always a theme, and over the years, you know, when I first started going, programmatic was a heavy theme, and it's still there, and it still exists. And one thing that they showed is, you know, programmatic has only ever hit 7% of spend, so it's still in the back burner, and I think there's still hope that it's going to change. But AI is at the fore. There's no doubt about it. So there were a lot of talks around AI, AI for media owners, AI in creative, AI in MMM. It was really an AI focused conference, and that brings a huge amount of excitement, but also a lot of question marks and a lot of uncertainty. And you know, when I sat through some of the presentations, some of them I must admit were over my head, and I'm gonna have to do a bit of research around it. But the future around how we're going to buy and sell out of home, how out of home is going to fit into the wider mix, and what out of home needs to be considered in the wider mix is I think going to be quite a challenge. And it's going to be interesting to see how global businesses pick this up and how we can bring that back to a local space and make sure that out of home stays cutting edge and keeps moving forward, not to be left behind.
I'm glad you raised that because I know we're going to be kicking to the episode now, and it's going to be my question, and it speaks so nicely to the question I want to ask, is when you were talking about now how out of home is involved in the buy side, and how much easier it can become for clients direct or agencies to buy and incorporate out of home into the media mix. I think the less tensions that there are, the more likely out of home will end up on more media plans, the more increased budget to the medium, the less occasions where out of home budget is moved over to the likes of TV or digital. And I think that really comes from removing those tensions and making the buy side a lot more
Mm.
easier, a lot more automated through the use of AI and other tools. But obviously there needs to be data and measurement in place, a uniform currency wherever possible. And we as a market for out of home, as yes, we have grown, and that's definitely something to acknowledge. And there's been a lot of positive growth within our industry from, development of tech and implementation of measurements. And, Peter, you were also a part of the
Mm.
industry before there was even any out of home measurements. So I definitely think we have been pushing to go forward, but there's still more work to be done. And I think that a lot of clients and agencies can find it quite difficult to navigate the out of home landscape in South Africa, from the legality issues that we're finding, in Gauteng and particularly in Joburg. The fact that, as I mentioned now, there's not one uniform currency across all
Mhm.
inventory. There is this little bit of this complex data and measurement environment in the market at the moment. And media owners somewhat understand that there's these tensions in the industry, and they're aware of them, but I don't think they really understand how does these tensions impact the buy side. And I think for me, the question I want to ask you is, how can media owners, be easier to buy from? And what do they need to know about how do agencies and brands, in particular agencies, how do they evaluate out of home and buy out
Yeah.
of home? That's important for media owners to know. You've been on both sides of this fence, and I
Mhm.
think there must definitely be some key takeouts from you now being on the agency side that would be really valuable to share with the media owners with regards to how agencies evaluate and buy out of home and how they can be, become easier to buy from.
No, it's a great question, and I think you probably need to split that into sort of maybe the two buckets. The first is when agencies are buying out of home, what's sitting on their side, and what are the stumbling blocks? And then the other side is, as a media owner, what do you see from that side? And I think those two positions currently are quite adjunct to each other. We don't work together. We actually are competing with each other. Um, So as an agency, we have 300 odd media owners that are listed under out of home in our supply chain, and it's impossible to deal with 300 companies. It's not physically possible. So we try and reach out to as many as we can for every single brief that we do. It's impossible for us to understand exactly what media every single media company does, and what when they're changing and moving and growing their business, for us to keep track of what they're doing. So an outdoor business is focused in one sector and suddenly starts doing something else. It's impossible. It really is. And having now moved across to this side of the table and seen the volume that we deal with, and the massive workload of just trying to deal with the daily churn, you realize that it's actually impossible. So at any one time at Park Advertising, as I said, we've got 300 media owners. We brief 50 odd media owners into a brief. We'll get 2,000 billboards coming back that must be evaluated and looked at and put into a plan, and that is all done manually. There are no systems in place. It's Excel and it's PowerPoint. It really is mind blowing. Um, so that's on our side. And then you go to the media owner side, and they're going, well, what's happening with this client? What's happening with that client? Why aren't they buying this? Why aren't they buying that? They've got a great idea. I've got this. And it's just not possible to marry these things up continuously. So from a media owner point of view, you need to understand that the guys on this side of the table are working with massive amounts of inventory. And I think that's one thing that media owners must start actually figuring out, is that, there are so many billboards out there, and there's so many opportunities. Very little of them are differentiated in any form. There are some iconics, so don't get me wrong, there are some. But 95% of the billboards and the imagery out there is absolutely commoditized. It's all the same. The media owners are not doing much to differentiate themselves. And so when they come and send it to us, it really is, everything's up to us now to figure out what will work for the plan, what won't work for the plan, based on whatever the criteria is. But there's nothing unique generally about the media owner's inventory. I think the biggest challenge for the media owners is, and I think that's something that they need to seriously consider, is how do you differentiate yourself in a space that is so overtraded? And I can't give them the answer. I've got no silver bullet for this, but there are a couple of things I've picked up. And they must also remember, I don't do the plans. I don't sit and actually crunch all this data. I watch the team do this, and I watch the frustrations that they experience, and they come and talk to me and say, they're struggling with this, they're struggling with that. But the biggest differentiator that I can see that a media owner can make is the level of service that they give to the agency. And that's not bring us cookies and Christmas cake and Easter bunnies, and that's not service. It's about getting the information to us as quick as possible. So when the deadline is Friday and you wait until Friday, generally by the time Friday comes, the person has already done all the selections, because they can't wait until Friday, because that means they have to work over the weekend because they've got to agree with the client on Monday. So they give you a deadline, because if they said to you, hey, today is Tuesday and I want it by close of business Tuesday, you're going to throw your hands in the air. But some media owners have learned to embrace this time pressure sensitive environment. And we send out a brief saying, hey guys, I need it by Friday. And a media owner will send it an hour later. And the next one 3 hours later. And the next one's 5 hours later. The 30th person who sends it on Friday morning is pretty much out of the consideration, because the planners already started putting the plan together. They've already looked at the inventory that's coming in. They've already started doing the selections. By the time you send your stuff through on Friday, a minute before the deadline, you're pretty much done.
I just want to touch on what you were speaking about now, because Liv and I run an out-of-home fundamentals training. And in that training, we actually have top tips for sales reps about how to revert on briefs and how to put their best foot forward. It's one of our modules in our training. And actually, that is one of the exact tips that we speak about. So Liv, I just wanted to swing this to you.
The majority of the time, there are cases that it really does come down to a service level, and the speed of the revert is so true. I think the agencies are operating at an insane pace, and often outside of hours, often on the weekend, often early hours, that the first briefs that come in or the reverts that come in are the ones you look at first. I think there has to be the sense of urgency that the clients are pressing onto the agency, and the agency is putting that onto the media owners. The media owners have to embrace that, or they will be left out. It's not nice to be told you have to embrace that, but it's just the pace of the agency, actually how it's moving. So I love that you've touched on that. I think the fastest finger first really couldn't be more true in this case, is that you've got to be the first person who's coming into the inbox and get back as quickly as possible. Something I also want to mention, and Chris, thanks for mentioning our training. I think anybody who's joined our training already is probably also nodding along, is that you need to make sure that if you are known to be quick to revert to briefs, you will be briefed first, right?
I think the other thing is, absolutely quick and to the point, and stick to the brief and meet the requirements that the agency is asking. So we all have our own templates. We all have it. Don't leave information out. Don't half complete it, because it just becomes harder to deal with you. As I said up front, we've got so much to choose from.
In a world of endless screens, what really gets people to look up? Out of Home has the power to stop scrolls in the real world. At JCDecaux, we help brands turn moments on the move into measurable impact. From classic billboards to dynamic digital out of home, we connect your message with the audiences that matter.
I want to build onto what we're chatting about here around kind of housekeeping, site selection, media owner relationships, agencies consideration, and touch on the legality piece within our industry at the moment. We've seen some huge council activity happening specifically in Johannesburg and Gauteng around the legality of sites, the removing of sites that haven't been approved. I think it has sparked concern and fear in some instances in the industry on what is happening with the out-of-home channel. It's created a hesitation from a client perspective in some cases, where clients are hesitant to invest in out-of-home if they're not sure if the sites are legal, or how do they proceed in a landscape that there is so much gray area when it comes to legality, and for various different reasons. Peter, I wanted to find out from you, what is your opinion on what you're seeing in the market at the moment regarding legality of sites, regarding how clients are navigating that, and how you as an agency are navigating that for your clients?
So I think that the first thing to make clear is whatever we do must be guided by what the client wants. So I spend quite a bit of time having meetings with the clients to work through what is illegal, what is illegal, what does it mean, what are the potential risks, what are the pitfalls if we do take a billboard that's illegal, what are their risks, what are our risks, what are the media owner risks. So, because many of them don't even understand what that is. They don't understand, what the terms mean, what is required for a billboard to be legal. So we go through that process. We try and encourage that they get their legal team in, because what we're finding is a lot of clients are very happy to go, oh, we'll buy that billboard. And I go like, it's got no approval. No, but that's fine. And then when it goes to legal go, whoa, handbrake. We need to have a look at this thing. So it really is important to get the legal team involved, because when anything hits the fan, it's going to go back to legal and we all be up to the same page. I had a chat to all the media owners from a park advertising perspective, and how we plan and how we are going to be handling this. And the first thing I made clear to them was, this is not about buying or not buying the boards. That's not the process. This is about full disclosure. We all understand the difficulty that they experience. And I was in that boat for many, many years, where you put an application into the council and you don't hear an answer for 5 years. My concern with that is they've all been happy to leave it and not pursue it and then just carry on doing their bit, which is not right. If this was your driver's license and it expired and you had your 3 months grace, every time you went through a roadblock, you'd be terrified that they would ask you for your license and you would go and resolve it. So why is this different? Why don't we resolve it? But I understand the frustration. What we've done from a park point of view is saying, guys, we want 100% full disclosure, so that clients who have a mandate to say we're not buying billboards that are not approved, we can apply that mandate. So it's really up to the client. We are the agents and the custodian of that brand. So we must do what they want, but they must be fully informed as to what the decisions are, and then we're going to execute it accordingly. So what we've done is we've taken the billboards and we sort of classified them into sort of like 4 buckets, if you want. A green bucket where happy days, got an approval, current approval, been approved, no issues, happy days. Then there are 2 sort of like buckets where it's orange and amber, and they're basically the same thing, but the billboard was approved, its approval's expired. They've applied to the city, or they haven't applied to the city, but the bylaws haven't changed. So there's no reason why that board should be an issue, and it should get an approval. Then there's the red bucket, the boards that have never been applied for, or have been applied for but never been approved. And the levels of risk are different. And you're absolutely right. It's now raised this concern with the whole industry. And I think we just need to deal with it fairly and openly with full disclosure. So my appeal to the media owners is, just tell us the way it is. So you've applied, you haven't applied, you've got an approval, it's expired, it's whatever. It is what it is. We will then deal with that, and each client will have a different mandate in terms of how we deal with it. But we don't want situations where you say one thing, the city arrive and remove it, or somebody posts it on a Facebook page to say, oh, look at this illegal billboard. And we don't want to get into that space. I don't want to get my clients into that space, and there's no reason to be in that space. So just disclose it, and we will then deal with it. And I think that's probably the best answer for everybody, So stop hiding, stop creating scenarios that aren't truthful, stop telling people in agencies, you don't need an approval because you're in a transition zone or whatever. Every billboard in the country that faces a public road needs an approval. We can't debate that. So has it got approval? Yes, no, okay, tell us why, and then we can make an informed decision about it. But let's all work together. We understand the pain that they've gone through. We understand the frustrations on the media owner side, but they can't pass that across to us without a truthful declaration as to what's happening.
I love that call for transparency. I think I can understand that, you started off the conversation by saying it's not about booking or not booking a site. I think that's also important, is that I think that is linked to the transparency. I can understand if you're a media owner that, you maybe haven't followed the right process, or maybe you have, but it hasn't been approved. You might then not want to be fully transparent unless forced to be, because you don't want to have the risk of not having any bookings for that site that you've erected. But I think I love the approach that Park have taken around having transparent conversations with the client and explaining the legality to it, and also classifying the different sites into different categories. I think what appears to be quite a shocking stance that the council have taken, in that it's made everybody realize they are very serious about enforcing the bylaws, as they should be. So I think that it's made everybody actually, instead of sweeping it under the rug and understanding, kind of application in, or not even asking, are the sites legal? The whole industry has to look at it now, whether you like it or not. This is happening. And I think it's important for agencies to have a process like you've outlined, as well as media owners to have a process to understand how we're going to be handling this. Let's get ahead of it before something happens and our site's removed, because once the site's removed, the client and the agency are going to immediately be very reactive because
Mm-hmm.
they've seen their site being, ripped out the ground
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, or the face cut out. So I think everybody listening to this has to look at the legality of their sites or of their sites that they've booked for media owners and have a plan around how they're going to navigate this, because it's happening in the industry. It's going to continue to happen. And it is actually good for the industry, for the enforcement of the bylaws by the city councils to be done.
You can imagine what the industry would look like if for the last 15 years, only billboards that were approved and the city was doing their job correctly and they were approving. We'd have a lot less billboards. They'd be worth a lot more because there would be not this oversupply. The environment would look better. And I think the city is now taking a stance to get back to where it should have been. And that has implications for the media owners. And they're not great implications. But it's about doing the right thing now, and the city's going to enforce it. And so if the media owners aren't going to do the right thing, the city would appear to be forcing that, and they're going to take it upon themselves.
From our point of view, and I'm going to say this, in the amount of times in our industry in South Africa where it's often referred to, not just South Africa, rest of Africa, and Peter's also got immense amount of experience doing out of home, not just in South Africa, but for neighboring and other African territories. But it's often been referred to back in the day as the cowboy industry. And what I want to speak to is that it should not be referred to that, but this legality issues that's happening in Johannesburg and Gauteng is lending itself to be that cowboy industry again. And I think for me, it's if we can all operate from a place of integrity and from a place of transparency, that is how we move this medium forward. That is how we can grow the spend, coupled with some other advancements, like when we talk about data and tech. But the first port of call and the place to come from is a place of integrity and transparency. So I completely, agree with the way that you're handling it from a park advertising point of view, Peter, with the call out for the transparency. And I think my call out to the industry is, let's get this right, guys. Let's operate from a place of integrity and transparency. Let's not be referred to as a cowboy industry as we were many, many years ago. And I think we've got a lot to give as a medium. And the last thing that we want to do is to create a negative sentiment for clients not wanting to spend an out of home because they're afraid and they're scared, and they move that medium onto other mediums like digital and TV. We know that when the income comes to out of home, it funds our local economy, and that is really, really important. The money going to digital, going to overseas companies doesn't have a positive impact on our country itself. So I think there's a number of reasons for us to get this right. I hope that over the next year, we can see this being course corrected by the city as well as the out-of-home media owners.
I think they're going to push hard until the end of the year. So we'll see what implications that has for everybody by the time we get there.
I wanted to ask you another question while we're sticking. It seems I've got all the heavy hitting questions for you today. But just based on your experience in the industry, as well as being on the media owner side, as well as on the agency side now, I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on data and measurement that we're seeing in the landscape? We understand that there are a few different media providers. We understand that there's been the huge introduction of the VAC, which has brought global best practice to the market. There are still a mixed bag. Certain media owners are still working on estimated duplicated traffic counts. And then obviously there's the long tail of the different measurement options available. But specifically with an agency hat on, agencies love to make everything the same on the schedule for the client. And I remember having the same challenge when I was on that side of the fence. And when the measurement is not all like for like, that can become complicated to navigate, not impossible. But I wanted to just get your opinion on where out of home and measurement is sitting in the market currently.
For the last 6 months particularly, I've been grappling with this because as I'm trying to move the agency forward to a more automated approach, so using AI, using metrics, using whatever, I'm realizing the struggle is this consistency of metrics. So fundamentally, the job of the agency is simple and as a nutshell. So we can argue about this, but it's actually simple. We need to buy as many people for the least amount of money. That's the job. You got to know what the audiences are, what the audience deliver, and we've got to do it for the least amount of money. So how do we consider audiences in out-of-home in South Africa where some media owners don't even report audiences? Then we've got metrics from 4 or 5. You've got OMC, you've got Luxon cameras, you've got All Unite, we've got out to orders with a currency. How do I compare 4 billboards with 4 completely different methodologies to know which one is delivering the right thing? So the industry actually now needs to deal with this because it is going to be a stumbling block for out of home until it's resolved. Every presentation at the Woo was around currency and was around a uniform currency in the industry where everybody subscribes to the same thing. And the results of that have always been impressive. It's always been the case, And I understand, when you talk about, Australia, there are only 68 players there, we got hundreds. I understand that. But that's an excuse. If we want to resolve it, we can resolve it. So I think this needs to be challenged now, needs to be dealt with. And the fault lies, frankly, on the buy side, because the buy side have not been rigid enough to ensure that there are metrics. So we very easy and very quickly just move away from it. So then why would the sell side care? And that's exactly why we are where we are. All we need from our side is one metric, if not for the whole industry, at least for every category. So one for roadside, one for malls, one for airports, one for taxi ranks, or whatever it is, that everybody that operates in that space buys into and delivers. We don't generally compare media against media. So, we always had this thing about, TV versus radio, whatever. We don't compare because you can't. The metrics are different. So to say that a TV station delivers 11 million people for this GRP and this cost per thousand is not relevant. When you are choosing TV against TV, yes. TV against other media types, no. It doesn't work like that. So the decision's already made what the split will be for outdoor. We need to now compare outdoor with outdoor. We can't, because one billboard has a measure that's using OMC, one has something else, one has a guy counting clickers with a thing, I don't know, So the industry needs to move together, because the industry will then have a currency that can be valued and then relied on and believed, and whatever that is. So the currency must be the industry's currency, and it must be what puts the industry in its best position. That's what they must do. That's what the JIC must do. But it doesn't matter to us what it is, as long as everything's the same, and I can say which billboard out of these 100 is better for my campaign. And how do I do that without a metric? How do I do that without audience measurement? You can't. So, currently we look at the pretty picture and we see what discount we're getting. I mean, that's how the decision gets made. And it's ridiculous. It can't work like that forever. So we need to actually move this thing forward. But on our side, the buyers need to place a lot more attention to the cost per thousands, the reach and frequency, and what the billboards are delivering.
I think you're right in that if the buy side had demanded it, the sell side would have had to respond to it, right? And we've seen this happen, for example, recently with like the introduction of verification on digital with Sea-Doo. There's specific clients that have said, we will not book digital out of home without verification. So you've seen a surge of media owners ensuring that they are subscribed to Sea-Doo to get that verification done.
Same.
So I agree with you, but I wonder what needs to be done, in your opinion, to move? You've got media owners, like you say, they're not bottomless pits to invest in every possible measurement and then chop and change. If you've got media owners who have invested in OMC, for example, they don't have endless money to now suddenly move to another measurement metric if that's required by the agency. So that's a huge factor. But I wanted to ask you, following your stance on this, what do you think needs to be done, and by which side of the fence? What are the next steps? What, in your opinion, should be done around this?
So for me, it's not about the currency. It's not about which one we choose. It's collectively choose one. We all support it. Get the buy side involved. And that's always where these things go pear-shaped. I mean, I don't think OMC has an advisory board any longer from the industry. Well, don't come and sell us something that you don't know we want. Ask us what we want. Ask us what will work for us. Let us be part of it so we can get the buy-in, and then we will support it. I was on that side of it for many, many years, and I think I fell into the same space. We all think we know what the agencies want from a media owner point of view, but do we really know what they want? And then we need to have the meetings as an industry with the two industries, so the buy side and the sell side need to get together and agree on what the playing field should look like and what we're supporting. And then we need to doggedly support it. We can't give it lip service. If we say, guys, we're not going to buy billboards from people that are not measured, whatever the measure is, you must be measured, and you must all be using the same measure, and this is the measure, then we must support that. In the same way as, we're not going to buy billboards that are illegal, if that's the thing, but we can't have it both ways, because we end up with a situation now where, the industry is getting a disservice, where people are buying stuff that is not correctly priced, doesn't deliver audiences, and then out of home doesn't deliver. And clients
Yeah.
think out of home doesn't deliver, and that's not the case.
We also opened up this episode discussing kind of one of your key takeaways from Woo around the mixed media modeling and how the industry
Yeah.
is moving forward. And I just think that, you know, the world is kind of split between two and out of home in our landscape, is that we want to be talking mixed media modeling. We want to be talking the sustainability of out of home growth going forward and all of those things, the introduction of AI to streamline processes so better work can be done more often. But then we're stuck at struggling with legality of sites and now the measurement piece that is not uniform for the market. And it's not very clear on the path forward on exactly how will that be fixed. I think for a long time, the challenge in the market was how will out of home be measured? Now the challenge seems to be what measurement should be used for out of home, because there are different options available. I liked your point that you made around having different environments being measured differently. I think that feels like a step in the right direction between, the industry agrees mall measurement is done in this way, roadside is done in this way. I think that could also speak to, some of the different players in the market. I think each player in the market also has their credibility that they've established in market for specific reasons. So I don't think we're going to solve it on this episode, but I think that you've raised some really important thought starters around that piece. And I think, something that's also recently come out of Woo and just stayed with me was around, we should be shouting about the USPs of out of home and how in a world where there is so much AI online and so much targeting that's missed and doom scrolling and all of these things, out of home should be speaking about its USPs. We don't fall into some of those buckets. We can't be skipped. All these things we know about out of home, we should be focusing on that and the credibility of the medium. But there's still a lot of work to be done around establishing some of those fundamentals.
The one thing we must understand is AR and MMM cannot operate without metrics.
Yeah.
So neither of those are going to be positively influencing. Yeah, it needs metrics. It needs something to be able to base its decision on. It needs something, So if it doesn't exist, we as an industry are going to fall behind all the other industries that are measured. It's really that simple,
Yeah. And I think there's another layer to this. We had this conversation with Trish from the OMC, and what we spoke about and what we positioned to her was also this conversation around live performance-based data. So I think it's all great to have our fixed measurement, and I agree that all out of home should be measured. And I don't think that proposals without measurement should be even reviewed from my perspective, because at this point, there's a number of providers in the market that you can get your medium measured by. We then have the problem of a uniform currency and uniform methodology, but you should still have your inventory, or media owners should still have the inventory measured to be able to be proposed to an agency. So this should be the basic, requirement. But I do think there's this layer of, we can't just have the fixed measurements anymore. Reach and frequency, those metrics are being questioned. It's about attention, which is our medium plays so beautifully in. But how are we measuring that? You can't be measuring that just with fixed measurement. We need to be looking at live performance-based data. So I think for me, this is such a critical piece to how we move our industry forward in South Africa. The legalities is obviously a huge piece. That's a fundamental. And then the second big fundamental is, okay, we've got all these measurement methodologies. What is the uniform currency? What is the guarantee or the commitment from the buy side, across, like you said, I love that idea, Peter, of bringing, both sides to the party together and having this conversation about what is this commitment that we're making as all the agencies on the buy side. This is our commitment. It needs to be measured by X. This is the methodology we approve and we will agree to use. And that's where we're going to see this movement in a positive direction.
I think that's the only way forward. And, it can carry on like it is for indefinitely, but I don't think it's going to do the industry a service in South Africa.
Yeah, I think that it's a great place for us to end our episode. I think we've discussed, as we mentioned, we've kind of taken some of the learnings from Woo, but also really unpacked how does the industry move forward across the different pillars that we've seen. Peter, I love the advice that you started the episode off with giving media owners really practical advice around how to approach agencies. A lot of the conversations Chris and I have with the media owners are around how do we crack the agency relationship? How do we get in with the agency? How do we build this relationship? And I think that you've kept it simple by just saying you've got to be the fastest revert in. And I think that will result in repeat briefing. So I think we've covered a range of different topics, but I think that we've really discussed some important things. And I just wanted to thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, as well as left us with a lot of important thought starters. So thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It was most enjoyable.
Thank you to the sponsor of today's episode. Your support helps make Beyond the Billboard possible and helps us to bring you the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa.
Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1, 2.